Okay. So, I mean, as expected, I don't see a lot of people, which is okay. I mean, and today also just going to, just solve a few examples. I mean, relevant ones based on the theory and the tools that we have learned. And as I promised you today, also I'm going to sort of leave you earlier so that you can go back and study for your tests. Okay. So I think I should begin with the first problem, which was this. Um, there does not exist a linear map P from F5 to F2, right? Where null of P is the set. Let's start. X1 is 3x2 3. Okay. All right. So, I mean, so the way the null of P is given, I mean, this could be any transformation, right? I mean, this doesn't have to be when I write T goes from one vector space to another vector space unless I mention specifically. I mean, do not assume that the transformation is a linear transformation. It has to be specified, right? Okay. So the null of T, according to this, is the set of these vectors, right? And we know x1 is 3x2. So this is 3x2, x2, and x3, x4, and x5 are just all x3, right? Okay, and so what that means is I have x2 and I have x3. Okay, so these two clearly span F5, right? I mean, these two vectors clearly span F5, and they are also linearly independent. It's easily to be seen, right? So therefore, these two vectors form the basis of F5, clearly. Okay. And sorry, these two vectors form the basis of 1 minute. Yeah.
Sir, like how do they span F5?
It's
Like,
not F5, it's null of T. Just a minute. They form the basis of null of T, right? Right, keep that. Right. Oops, what did I do? Okay, fine. I'll just write it again. Okay. So the null of T is nothing but these two vectors. I think 3, 1, 0, 0, 0, and 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. Okay. We also know that null of T has to be a subspace of F5, right? And so therefore dimension of null of T will be less than equal to dimension of F5, which is fine. Dimension of F5. And so what is the dimension of null of T? It contains two linearly independent vectors that span null of T, right? So the dimension of null of T is nothing but 2. Okay? All right. Now, since the dimension of F5 is five clearly, right? Then the dimension of range of T will be 5 minus 2, which is equal to 3. Okay, all right. Now we have this transformation from F5 to F2. And so these guys, this particular guy's dimension is 2. Okay, all right. And the dimension of the range of T is 3. So what we can see from here, that dimension of range of T, which is supposed to be a subspace of, supposed to be a subspace of F2, right, is greater than the dimension of F2. This is not possible. Okay, all right, this will never happen. So therefore, T is not linear. Okay, so this solves the problem. Sort of. Most of you read this problem wrong in the test, but that's okay.
Sir, in the test, the answer was given everything except for this option.
No, I mean in the statement I said that T is linear, right? One of the option was T is linear, so that has to be false.
Sir, I'm pretty sure the
question-
answer in the question was the other three options.
The question in the answer said that the range of T has to be 3, and that was a correct option. Whereas you just proved it cannot be 3.
Let me.
We agree it cannot be a linear map. That was never the question. It is not a linear map, but the problem is that there was no option which matches the answer you yourself have proved right now.
What a minute. Wait a minute. T is not a linear map. That was option D. Option D was T is not a linear map. Okay. All right. So I know what I'm talking about. So the correct answer is E.
Sir, but the null space is also correct, right? B.
Yeah, all of the above, right?
No, but dimension of range of
Sir,
T is 3
we
is not
just
correct.
proved that it is not 3.
Dimension of range of T is 3. When did I prove that it is not 3? When did I prove that? I saw dimension of range of T is supposed to be a subspace of F2 is greater than dimension of range of T it has to be 3. See? What are you talking about?
In non-linear map is not possible, no? Because the
No,
range
you don't know that. No, you don't know that. You do not know that. The dimension of V equal to dimension of range of T plus dimension of null of T. This identity might hold for infinite dimensional subspaces also. Okay, all right. So you read, that's why I said you read the problem wrong. That identity might hold. Okay. Now the question was assume that the identity holds. Then you look at what your options are. If that identity holds, then T cannot be a linear transformation.
So what I'm saying is that for any space, the subspace of the given space must have a dimension less than or equal to the space, right?
Yeah. So I mean, where did I say otherwise?
Yeah, so by definition, the range is a subspace of the codomain.
Yeah,
The
which is
codomain
not.
true.
Yeah, which it is not. Which it is not, and which it is not, and therefore T is not linear.
Sir, forget. I'm just saying, if a transformation, if any given function goes from a set A to set B, then B must be the codomain, and the codomain must be a superspace of
That
the range.
you are talking about finite dimensional sets. Okay, all right. The wording of the problem was you assume that holds. Assume that the identity holds, then these are your options. That was the way you should have read the problem. Assume that the identity holds.
So the range has dimension 3, and the range is not a subspace of the codomain. That's what you are trying to imply.
Yeah. Which is why the transformation cannot be linear. Because for linear transformation, the dimension of the range of T has to be less than or equal to dimension of its superspace. Okay, where it is.
Sir, can you give an example of a space or a matrix or a transform, however complex, that might satisfy these constraints there, where codomain is of dimension 2, domain is of dimension 5, and the range is of dimension 3 of any linear, non-linear transformation, whatever?
Well, I mean, if you take any nonlinear transformation, the way to find out the dimension is not by counting the number of basis vectors, right? So, I mean, I cannot show you that example because, I mean, we don't have the tools to show that. But if there is a complex dimensional vector space f to the power infinity, right? This could be true. Because there, what you do is you use the integral definition of the inner product space. You don't compute the inner product in this way, what we do in a finite dimensional vector space.
Sir,
Okay?
but here, aren't we talking about finite dimensional spaces because it says from F5?
No, we are talking about financial dimension. What you are not able to understand is that, I mean, I understand that the problem wording is tricky, but given that dimension of V equal to dimension of range of T plus dimension of null of T, and T is a transformation from V to W, right? Okay, your options were given. Now, because one of the conditions does not hold, which is the dimension of range of T is greater than the dimension of F2, that is why the transformation cannot be linear transformation. If it's linear, that subspace condition has to hold. That's the whole point.
I have understood everything except just one thing. Why did we write the transform is from f power 5 to f power 2 when the range has to be in f power 3? Why did we not just write f power 5 to f power 3 then? I mean, the range has to be a subset of...
No, then it would be a linear transformation. I gave you as one of the options that the transformation is non-linear.
Also, sir, the rank-nullity theorem does not hold for non-linear transforms. So how are we using rank-nullity theorems to...
No, the rank-nullity theorem might hold. We don't know that. Rank-nullity theorem, that's an identity. As I said, it might hold for a nonlinear transformation as well. Okay, it might hold for a nonlinear transformation, but then since we compute the dimensions in infinite dimensional vector spaces in a different manner, so we don't know. Okay, so the whole problem was in the form of, whether the transformation is linear or not. Okay.
So, one doubt. So, irrespective of the set A or B and the function f, whether it's linear or non-linear, the function, when it goes from A to B, the range has to be a subset of codomain, even if A or B are infinite dimensional or finite dimensional, right?
No, that is when the function is a linear functional.
No,
it's a non-linear.
Whatever the function is, if it's linear or non-linear, this holds true as far as I know.
No. I mean, for non-linear functionals, this does not hold. Okay. All right.
So could you give an example, please?
No, that's how I said I cannot, because I mean then I have to talk about non-linear functionals, which I don't have.
And sir, also over here we are our proof rests on the fact that dimension of range we have calculated it to be 3. But for that, we have assumed that T is linear because we are using rank nullity. So
No. See, as I said, I mean, the identity might hold for nonlinear transformation as well. That rank nullity might hold for nonlinear transformation as well.
yeah, but the
Sir,
proof.
sir, but then
but the
we're
proof can
essentially
use it
assuming
only.
that.
So, but the
No,
proof
because
can
it's
use
the
it
one,
only
the
when it
proof
holds
was,
for all nonlinear.
the proof is not, the proof, that theorem that I proved in class was not a necessary and sufficient condition. It's just one way.
But there exists nonlinear for which rank nullity does not hold, right? So this proof would.
Rank nullity does not hold, rank nullity may hold, rank nullity may not hold. We don't know that. So the idea was you assume that the identity holds and look at your options. Okay? All right. Okay, let's
So
move
if
on.
a vector V is in range
Sir,
of,
but why would we?
if a vector V is in the range of T, okay, that means vector V is three-dimensional, correct? According to the answer. But the vector V also lies in the codomain, and the codomain is two-dimensional.
That is exactly my point, guys. I mean, since it's not, so therefore the transformation is non-linear. You have to look at the options given to you.
I am
I mean,
agreeing that transformation is
no.
linear
I mean,
because
no. According to the options, I mean, if that option D was not given, then you could have argued it otherwise. Since the option D is given in a multiple choice setup, I mean, when the options are given, you need to see which option fits the best. Now you are. I mean, I understand your argument. I also understand that you want to get, you want to get the points that you lost, but that's not the way to read that problem.
it is not about the points, it's about the principle.
No, I understand the principle. I also told you, I just showed that example. I understand the principle. Okay, I understand the principle very well, and I just showed you that if that subspace condition is violated, then the transformation cannot be linear. Okay.
So, irrespective of linear or non-linear, any function from f5 to f2 cannot have a range greater than two-dimensional, irrespective if it's a linear transform or a non-linear transform. So,
No,
I
I mean,
don't
I
see
just,
the
no, I mean, I'm sorry you don't say it. I mean, let's think about it, okay? And we can discuss it later. But
So
this is,
the image elements will be two-dimensional, right? So you cannot exceed two dimension if you're going to f2.
right, I mean, which is why
Irrespective of any dimension
no,
or non-linear.
which is why, because in infinite dimensional spaces, you actually cannot count the dimensions. I mean,
But
you are,
sir, why are we
But
bringing
this
up
result is set dependent, not
finite
dimension
things?
dependent.
no, this is dimension dependent, okay?
So
The
why
dimension also,
everything is finite? So why are we even arguing about infinite things? I agree in infinite things we cannot count the way things we normally count. But our given example, the given question is absolutely finite in all way, shape, and form. So in that, your argument is trying to say that a vector in the range is both three-dimensional and two-dimensional, depending on how you view it. If you view it in the range of T, it's three-dimensional. If you view it as in a codomain of T, it's two-dimensional.
what I
I
just said,
agree your point that the transform is non-linear. That is never the question. It's non-linear for sure. Now, the non-linear transform has a range, a set of values that it has in the image. So let V be such a value which we get from transform. Okay, so that V must be three-dimensional because we stated that the range of T is dimension 3. But since we also know that any vector in the range must also be in the codomain, so that same vector V, which we got from from applying a transformation which is of dimension 3, is also of dimension 2. So I fail to understand how 3 can be equal to 2.
when did I say 3 is equal to 2?
So exactly my point, sir.
I didn't say 3 equal to 2. I never said that.
That is just.
I just said if your transformation is like, if your transformation is given this way, then the transformation cannot be linear. That's what I said. Okay. I did not say anything more.
So the proof actually what it does is it assumes the transformation to be linear, then shows that hence if it is linear.
No,
Yeah,
no, no. When did I say no? When did I? No, the proof never assumed that the transformation is linear.
sir,
The
sir,
proof,
assuming
the proof.
rank nullity to hold implies
Once
that you're
again,
assuming.
I gave you that argument. The rank nullity may hold for infinite dimensional vector spaces as well as nonlinear functionals. Okay, all right. There is in fact a rank nullity theorem for nonlinear functionals as well. Okay, and it reads exactly the same manner. All right. Okay. So let's look at this problem. All right. So this is based on the identity that if there are two finite dimensional vector spaces, then dimension of U1 intersection. Sorry.
So in the
But
first
guys,
question, dimension of range is 3 is what you're claiming, is it?
I mean, it is computed as 3.
Assuming that rank nullity holds for this particular nonlinear transform, then it is 3.
Exactly.
So you're claiming that for this nonlinear transform, rank nullity will hold.
Yes.
Could you prove that? Because for some it might not hold.
No, I can. I mean, but as I said, once again, you are asking a question, the proof of which is beyond the scope of the class. What I will do is I will prove this and I will scan it and I'll post it to the classroom. Okay. All right. So dimension. So we know that. Okay. Once again, I'm this is the. Thanks. Okay. So we know that we have shown this in class that two finite dimensional vector spaces U1 union U2 is dimension of U1 plus dimension of U2 minus dimension of U1 intersection U2. So we know this. Okay. Now using this, can I figure out what is the dimension of U intersection V given that the two vector spaces are, so this will be a span, right? These two vector spaces are two subspaces of V. So U is a subspace, V is also a subspace. U is spanned by 3 vectors and these 3 vectors are given to us. Okay. All right. Now, if you look at U and if you look at V, then what is U union V? What is U union V? U union V is nothing but V1, V2, V3, V4, and V5. Okay, all right. So that is U union V. Now, if I take a look at these V1, V2, and V3, V4, and V5, I mean, if you combine all of these vectors, you can easily see that these 5 vectors, they actually will span R5, right? So U union V also spans R5, okay? And it can also be shown, it's easily checked, it can also be shown that these 5 vectors are linearly independent. So that means that dimension of U union V would be five. Okay, so that's easy to see. Now, what about dimension of U and dimension of V? Okay, so dimension of U is actually 3 vectors, V1, V2, and V3. Okay, and these are, as you can see, okay, all right. And if you check quickly, you can see that these are linearly independent, right? And so this dimension of U is will be 3 because it contains 3 linearly independent vectors, and these 3 linearly independent vectors also span R5. So this is linearly, you can consider this as a basis, as one of the bases, right? So dimension of U is B. Similarly, dimension of V, if you look at the dimension of V, it's also, it's equal, yeah, it's also 3. Okay, so you apply this then. So this is dimension, this is 3, this is 3, this is 5. So therefore, this has to be 1. Okay? So therefore, a dimension of U in U intersection V is equal to all right. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's take another example. This is what I have done already. So here is one. It says that, let's say I have a spanning list gamma 1 through gamma n, and this spans V. Okay. Then what do you think about gamma 1 minus gamma 2, gamma 2 minus gamma 3, gamma n minus 1 minus gamma n, and gamma n. Okay, will this also span V? What do you think? I mean, we can take a vector, any vector in V, right? And because this gamma 1 through gamma n spans the vector space, I can write it as a linear combination of the spanning list, right? Okay. What else? Now, this spanning list is not unique, right? This spanning list is not unique, which means that I can also write this as, I can always find another set of coefficients such that gamma can be expressed as a linear combination of the same vectors, right? Now the question is, what are those coefficients? It's actually easy to see that if you set these as A1, this as A2 minus A1, and this as just a telescoping sum, A3 minus A2, and so on. Then what you will get is the following. Okay. And so what you could have is that if you combine these two terms, maybe A1 minus A2, should I have written A1 minus A2, or maybe so A1 gamma 1 minus gamma 2, correct, plus A2 gamma 2 minus gamma 3, right, so on and so forth. Okay, all right, and the last term will be A n gamma n, right? Okay, So therefore, what you have is actually again a linear combination, but this time a linear combination of a different arrangement of those spanning lists. So therefore, what you have is gamma 1 minus gamma 2, gamma 2 minus gamma 3, gamma. Okay. So the answer is yes, it can be. Okay. All right, one more example and then I'll let you go. Which is this, I think. Yeah. So let's say that,
Excuse me, sir.
yep.
So in the previous example, how did we assume that the new set of scalars would be equal to A1?
No, that's a trick. That's a trick. That's a trick because you had to show that gamma 1 minus gamma 2 or yes, gamma 1 minus gamma 2 minus gamma 3. This is also another spanning list. So it's just a trick because I mean the combination that the scalars that you choose are actually up to you. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Okay, okay.
So because you are not talking about linear independence here, you are only talking about the spanning list, right? Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So here, let's say this is an injective is injective. Okay. All right. And this set V1 through Vn is linearly independent in V. What else do we know? So what do you think of this set of vectors? Are these linearly independent in such? Now, since V1 through Vn is linearly independent, now since V1 through Vn is linearly independent in V, what we know is that there exist scalars C1 through Cn, all identically zero, such that C1 V1 plus C2 V2 plus Cn Vn equal to 0, right? Now T is an injective map, so which means, I mean, it's linear. So I just apply the injective map here, right? So since T is an injective map, T of 0 must map it to 0, right? Okay. And so therefore, this is C1 TV1 plus Tn TVn is equal to 0, right? So using the properties of linear transformation. So now we know that these guys, TV1 through TVn, they actually are in W. We know that, right? By the virtue of this linear transformation. So the question is, what we have to show is that these guys are linearly independent as well. Okay. All right. Now, since T is injective, what do we know about? We have a very important result, right? Between the injectivity of T and the null of T. What is that?
Null set will be 5, meaning
0. Right. Okay. Okay. So if that's the case, then I mean, what is, and this is what? This is null of T, right? Or this is null of T, right? This is actually null of T by definition. Okay. All right. So what can we argue from here? Can we argue that the C1s through Cns are 0?
Yes, sir, because T of V1 cannot be equal to 0 if V1 is not the null zero vector. Right.
Right. Okay. So yes, we can argue that C1 to Cn are same. Okay. All right. I'll just give you another example, but I will, as I said, I'll give you early today. So this example we'll discuss in class, but this is a basis set that we actually haven't talked about before. But these basis sets are actually used a lot in vector spaces. And so I'll just introduce the notation today, and then I'll let you go. Is that this is nothing but a set of all real valued polynomials, set of real valued polynomials of degree less than or equal to n. Okay, all right. Now you can choose the value of n, and you can then adjust your vector space. So this is, I mean, this is also a vector space, right? Okay, and what I am doing is, if I am able to define a linear transformation between this vector space and the vector space of real numbers, okay, then you know that whatever you are doing, your linear transformation is actually outputting a scalar all the time by virtue of this linear transformation, right? Because it's a vector space of real numbers only, it doesn't have its dimension is 1. So it just outputs the real numbers, okay? All right. And the linear transformation is actually it's a strange linear transformation. It is actually defined in this manner. An integral 0 to 1 e of x. Okay. All right. So what is interesting to look at is that what kind of a matrix this kind of linear transformation induces, right? Can we find the rank and nullity of those matrices? Can we find the basis of the null space of T and so on, right? But one interesting thing to look at is that if I just think about this P201. Okay, just a simple example. Now this P201 is a set of all real valued polynomials of degree less than or equal to 2. Okay, so this means what? What sort of polynomials can this contain? It can contain a polynomial which is 1. It can contain a straight line, right? 1 plus x. It can contain a parabola which is x squared, right? So the most generic form of a polynomial that you can write on this kind of space is 1 plus x squared. That's it, right? Okay. Okay. So if I ask you, just think about this, that what sort of basis vectors will you cook up so that you can represent any polynomial on this space? Do you have an answer? Just this, I mean, forget about Pn, just think about P201. So what sort of basis vectors, intuitively speaking, can you cook up so that you can represent any polynomial in this space? Nothing? So can I say,
Sir, 1 comma x minus half comma x minus half whole square.
no, the most standard basis vectors would be this, right? 1x and x squared. So you need just these 3 basis vectors to actually construct any polynomial up to degree 3, isn't it? I mean, sorry, up to degree 2, isn't it? Right? I mean, you can cook up any combination, right? I mean, you can choose the coefficients any way you want, but I mean, it is just like R3. R3, the elementary basis vectors has 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, and 0, 0, 1. You could also have other sort of basis vectors, right? Also in this space of polynomials, the 3 most elementary basis vectors are not vectors, I'm sorry, these are functions. Basis functions are 1, x, and x squared. They mean the same thing though. Okay. All right. So this is reasonable. What you said is also correct, right? But I mean, if I think of this as a basis set, then what can I say about the dimension of this particular vector space? 3, right? the dimension of this particular vector space is 3. Okay. So in general, for polynomials like this, right, the dimension of n plus 1. Okay. All right. So we'll begin from here in the next class.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So what does that 0, 1 signify?
It's only set of, I mean, it means that the 0, 1, you see how the way I defined the transformation, right? It means the domain is the real numbers that you choose are already between 0 and 1.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the way the integral, the lower limit and the upper limit of the integral is 0 and 1.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Okay, that's it for today. You can leave the classroom.